General Hospital spoilers reveal that Dante and Chase being arrested and thrown into a jail cell together wasn't just an unexpected disciplinary action, it was a seismic shock that sent tremors through every corner of the PCPD and beyond. What began as an escalating personal rift between two decorated detectives had now exploded into a full-blown crisis that no one, not even Anna, could pretend to contain without consequences. Their joint incarceration was not just a punishment, it was a symbol of the complete collapse of trust, structure, and stability among the very people sworn to protect law and order in Port Charles. And in the center of it all stood Anna, a woman known for her sharp mind, tactical composure, and unshakable dedication to justice, now facing a situation that was spiraling far beyond her control. The decision to lock up Dante and Chase had not been made lightly. But the circumstances left Anna with no other choice. Their once solid partnership had devolved into a battlefield of bitterness and resentment, sparked by Brooke Lynn's long-buried secret about her teenage pregnancy with Dante and the fact that Chase had kept the truth hidden. For Dante, the betrayal cut deep, not only because of Brooke Lynn's concealment but because Chase, a fellow detective and someone he considered a brother in arms, had knowingly withheld the information. In the world of law enforcement, trust isn't optional, it's lifeblood. And when that trust shatters, the consequences are not only emotional but operational. Dante's simmering fury and sense of betrayal had begun to impact his work, his focus, and his ability to collaborate with Chase. Meanwhile, Chase, torn between loyalty to his wife and his duty as a partner, found himself growing defensive, hostile, and emotionally exhausted. Neither man could see the other's perspective, and their refusal to reconcile had created a toxic atmosphere that was infecting the entire department. Anna had tried everything: private conversations, mediation, even reassigning cases, but nothing worked. Their hostility persisted, infecting every interaction and drawing attention from officers, city officials, and now the press. The last straw came when a public altercation between Dante and Chase erupted during a joint investigation, drawing unwanted scrutiny and raising questions about the integrity of the PCPD's internal dynamics. Anna knew then that a line had to be drawn, and not with words or empty warnings. It had to be a message loud enough for the entire city to hear. So she did the unthinkable: she ordered them to hand over their badges and weapons and threw them into a cell like common criminals. The fallout was immediate. Dante and Chase were stunned, furious, humiliated, and unprepared for the reality of being treated not as detectives, but as liabilities. And yet, Anna remained resolute. Her decision wasn't about vengeance or theatrics, it was about accountability. If the men who were supposed to enforce the law couldn't control themselves, they needed to be reminded, viscerally, of what it meant to live on the other side of those bars. But even Anna underestimated the chaos that would follow. Because locking up Dante and Chase didn't just stir public interest, it ignited political backlash, internal departmental unrest, and a media firestorm that painted her as either a genius or a tyrant, depending on who you asked. Reporters hounded the PCPD, demanding answers. Was this a personal vendetta? A breakdown in leadership? Or something more dangerous, a sign that the institution itself was fractured beyond repair? Anna, already stretched thin from months of internal tension and external scrutiny, now found herself in the most precarious position of her career. The press didn't care about nuance. They didn't care about honor codes or emotional complexity. They wanted headlines. And now they had one: 2 cops behind bars. Commissioner Anna Devane's gamble backfires. Behind the scenes, things were even worse. Senior officers began questioning her judgment. Some believed she had gone too far, using her authority to make an example when more measured steps could have been taken. Others secretly supported her, understanding that without decisive action, the Dante-Chase feud would have become an open wound that never healed. But regardless of opinion, one truth was unavoidable: Anna was now at the center of a firestorm. Her leadership, once respected without question, was being dissected, doubted, and diminished by the very people she once inspired. Her ability to command the respect of her force was on the line. And every move she made from this point forward would either cement her legacy or destroy it. Meanwhile, inside the holding cell, Dante and Chase were forced to confront not just each other, but themselves. With nowhere to run, nowhere to escape, the silence between them became a battlefield. Hours passed without words, tension thick in the air. When they finally spoke, it wasn't calm or measured, it was explosive. Dante accused Chase of choosing Brooklyn over truth, over justice, over brotherhood. Chase fired back that Dante had no right to judge. That he had no idea what it meant to protect someone's trauma, to carry a secret not out of malice, but love. They yelled, blamed, threatened, until finally, the rage exhausted itself and was replaced by something deeper, pain. In the stillness that followed, the truth began to emerge, not the facts, which were already known, but the emotional toll that each man had endured. Dante admitted that the knowledge of a child given up, a life he never knew existed, was tearing him apart. Chase confessed that the burden of Brooklyn's secret had left him feeling alone, trapped between his loyalty to his wife and his duty as a detective. For the first time, they saw each other not as adversaries, but as men trying and failing to protect the people they loved in a world that demanded impossible choices. Slowly, the walls began to crack. Not completely. Not yet. But enough for the first glimpse of reconciliation to take root. Outside the cell, Anna watched from the surveillance monitor, her face a mask of exhaustion and hope. She knew this was a gamble. She knew she might be sacrificing her reputation to save two men who had almost destroyed themselves. But she also knew that healing never came from comfort, it came from confrontation. And if this was what it took to rebuild their bond, she would bear the fallout. Because for Anna, this wasn't just about two detectives, it was about the soul of the PCPD, about proving that accountability and compassion could coexist, even in a world built on rules and order. As the days passed, whispers began to shift. Some officers began to see the brilliance in Anna's decision. Public opinion, once sharply divided, began to evolve as people saw Dante and Chase emerge from their cell changed, not defeated, but humbled, wiser, and perhaps stronger than before. The media, always hungry for drama, now turned their focus toward the story of redemption. Could a broken partnership be saved through forced reckoning? Could leadership be defined not by how one maintained control, but how one endured chaos and chose to believe in something better? For Anna, the answer didn't come in applause or accolades. It came in quiet moments, like when Chase handed Dante a coffee during a shift without tension, or when Dante nodded to Chase in a briefing with something close to respect. It came in the absence of conflict, in the slow rebuild of a bridge that had nearly been burned to ashes. And in those moments, Anna understood that while the storm had taken its toll, it had also revealed something powerful, that even when pushed to the brink, true partnership, true brotherhood, and true leadership could survive. But the road ahead remained uncertain. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. The aftershocks of this ordeal would echo through the department for months, perhaps years. Anna would still face questions. Still confront judgment from those who believed in a different kind of command. And Dante and Chase, though on the path toward repair, would carry the scars of this fallout into every case they touched. Yet somehow, through the madness, something had been reclaimed, a deeper understanding, a renewed sense of duty. And a reminder that sometimes, the only way to move forward is to survive the fire together. And though Anna now stood in the eye of what had once felt like a storm she couldn't contain, she emerged from it not defeated, but transformed. Because in this madness, she had not only held her ground, she had reminded everyone what leadership looked like when it refused to walk away. The situation between Dante and Chase has deteriorated beyond recognition, descending from strained camaraderie to something far darker, far more destructive, than anyone in Port Charles could have foreseen. For weeks, their tension had been building. Driven first by unresolved resentments over Brooklyn's secret about her teenage pregnancy with Dante, then further complicated by Chase's protective silence. and ultimately pushed into dangerous territory by the explosive truth that had now taken center stage in their unraveling relationship. Gio was not just some kid caught in the middle of a departmental operation or a troubled teen trying to find his place. He was Dante's biological son. And no one, not Brooke Lynn, not the Quartermaines, not even Chase, had told him. The bombshell surrounding Joe's identity detonated with such emotional force that it left an entire network of relationships in ruins. But for Dante, the fallout wasn't abstract, it was immediate, intimate, and devastating. Every moment he had spent working beside Gio, every professional interaction, every moment he had observed the boy with a quiet curiosity or vague paternal instinct he had never fully acknowledged, now struck him with cruel clarity. He should have known. He should have felt it. And yet, he had been blind, kept in the dark by everyone, including the man who was supposed to be his brother in arms. Chase. Dante's rage wasn't logical. It wasn't calculated. It was primal, consuming, and inescapable. It didn't matter whether Chase had known the full truth or merely suspected. In Dante's eyes, Chase had stood beside him every day while he unknowingly walked past his own son, while decisions were made that shaped Joe's life forever, and never once had Chase given him the truth. That betrayal cut deeper than any bullet or blade ever could. It wasn't just the loss of 20 years with his child, it was the loss of agency, the denial of fatherhood. The silencing of the most sacred relationship a man could have. And now, inside the cell Anna had locked them in, a move she had once hoped would catalyze healing, Dante and Chase were ticking time bombs. The air between them was heavy with unspoken accusations and words sharp enough to draw blood. Chase had tried, initially, to explain himself. He told Dante that he had tried to do the right thing. That the secret hadn't been his to tell, that Brooke Lynn had made a choice he couldn't override. But Dante wasn't listening anymore. He couldn't hear anything past the roar in his ears. Logic had no place in the kind of heartbreak he was experiencing. And Chase, despite his efforts, was losing his own grip, because being painted as the villain, when all he had ever tried to do was protect the people he loved, had become unbearable. What began as silence eventually erupted into shouting. Accusations flew across the cell, one after another, each word slicing deeper than the last. Chase called Dante blinded by rage. Dante called Chase a coward. They hurled years of loyalty, sacrifice, and pain back at each other like weapons. Then, without warning, the shouting turned physical. The first blow came from Dante, fast and furious, driven by months, years, of emotional repression finally breaking free. Chase responded in kind. Not with the intention to hurt, but with the reflexive instinct of a man pushed too far. Fists collided, bodies slammed against steel bars, and the narrow cell became the arena for a brutal, heartbreaking confrontation between two men who had once taken bullets for each other. Outside the cell, alarms blared. Officers ran to intervene. But by the time they separated the two, it was already too late. The damage had been done. Dante stood with blood on his lip and rage in his eyes. Chase nursed a bruised rib and stared at his former partner with something that looked like grief. They had crossed a line, not just professionally, but emotionally. Whatever thread of trust still existed had snapped completely. When Anna was informed of the fight, she stood frozen for a moment, the weight of her decision collapsing on her shoulders. This wasn't just a miscalculation anymore, it was a disaster. She had hoped confinement would force them to reckon with their emotions, to confront the truth and emerge stronger. But instead, she had handed them the perfect stage for their destruction. And now, the consequences threatened to ripple out far beyond just two broken men. Word of the fight spread quickly through the department. Officers whispered about what had really happened. Some blamed Dante for letting emotion override duty. Others blamed Chase for being complicit in the cover-up about Gio. Everyone blamed Anna for putting them in the same cell. The media, already circling after the original arrest, now pounced with renewed vigor. Cops turn on each other, the headlines screamed. PCPD descends into chaos. But beneath the politics and the rumors was a deeper, more human tragedy. Gio, now aware of who his father was and how that truth had been hidden, was caught in the emotional crossfire. The boy who had spent his life searching for identity now watched the man who had unknowingly fathered him fall apart before his eyes. Gio didn't know where he belonged anymore. Was he a Quartermain? A Falconary? A stranger to both? And how could he reconcile the image of two heroes, Dante and Chase, fighting like enemies over the secret of his life? Brooklyn, racked with guilt and fear, tried to reach out to both men. But neither was ready to hear her. The silence between her and Dante was like a funeral. And Chase, though still committed to her, couldn't shake the weight of what they had cost Dante. Every day, he questioned whether his silence had protected the woman he loved, or destroyed the friendship that had once defined him. In the days that followed, Anna took a step back. She didn't offer statements to the press. She didn't launch immediate disciplinary reviews. She waited. Because something in her understood that this wasn't just a procedural failure, it was a personal tragedy, and no amount of paperwork could fix what had broken. Eventually, Dante and Chase were released from their cell. The physical wounds healed quickly. The emotional ones did not. They returned to work in name only, assigned to separate cases. Their interactions limited, clinical, devoid of the camaraderie that once defined their partnership. Every meeting was strained. Every shared space heavy with tension. And though both men tried, in their own way, to find their footing again, the truth was undeniable. Something sacred had been lost. The revelation of Joe's paternity didn't just shake up their lives, it redefined them. It exposed the limits of loyalty, the fragility of truth, and the unbearable weight of secrets kept for the wrong reasons. And for Dante and Chase, men who had once trusted each other with their lives, it forced a painful reckoning. Not all wounds are visible, and not all friendships survive the truth. But even in the aftermath, a question lingered: was this truly the end of their bond? Or was it merely a descent before a long, painful climb towards something new, something more honest? Something that could one day be rebuilt, not from trust, but from truth? Only time would tell. But in the present, the silence between them spoke louder than any apology ever could. And in that silence, the city of Port Charles watched, waiting to see whether two broken men could ever find their way back from the wreckage they had become. The spiraling crisis between Dante and Chase has now escalated to such a dangerous degree that even those who once believed it could still be contained are beginning to accept the frightening possibility that it may already be too late. What started as a fracture between two trusted detectives has now become a chasm threatening to engulf not only their partnership but also the structural integrity of the entire PCPD. At the heart of this implosion lies the devastating secret surrounding Joe's true parentage, a secret kept for decades, a secret that now carries the weight of every shattered bond. Every repressed emotion, and every choice made in the name of protection, but which has instead triggered irreversible consequences. For Anna, who has dedicated her entire life to law enforcement, integrity, and leadership, the current situation is nothing short of a waking nightmare. She has led her department through terrorist threats, corruption scandals, and betrayals at the highest levels of power, but nothing has shaken her quite like this. Because this time, the danger is not coming from outside. It's coming from within, from the people she trusted most, the officers she mentored, believed in, defended. The very foundation of the PCPD is cracking beneath her feet. And for the first time in a long while, Anna can no longer be certain that strength and resolve will be enough to hold it together. The revelation that Gio is Dante's biological son has done more than shock the city. It has become a slow-rolling emotional detonation. Each passing hour reveals new aftershocks, rippling through not only Dante and Chase's partnership but through their relationships with Brooklyn, Anna, and even the community they serve. The decision to keep Joe's identity hidden, originally made by Brooklyn when she was just a scared teenager, might have made sense in the context of youth, shame, and survival. But now, decades later, that same decision has turned poisonous. It has robbed Dante of 20 years of fatherhood and fed into his growing rage and disorientation, leaving him a shadow of the man he once was. No longer the composed and measured detective he had built himself to be, Dante now walks through the halls of the precinct like a live wire, tense, erratic, one wrong word away from an explosion. And Chase, caught in the middle of his loyalty to his wife and his once unshakable bond with Dante, is cracking in ways no one saw coming. He carries the weight of knowing the truth, of having chosen silence, and of trying to honor a promise that in hindsight may have caused more harm than good. His every interaction with Dante is now soaked in guilt and fear that he will never again earn back the trust they once shared, fear that he has failed as a friend, as a partner, as a husband, and even as a man trying to do the right thing. That fear has turned into tension, and that tension into barely controlled emotional volatility. Anna has watched all of this unfold with a growing sense of dread. Her decision to detain both men, to strip them of their badges and weapons, to lock them in a cell in hopes that isolation would force reconciliation, was not made lightly. It was a tactical move, the kind she had employed many times before to bring criminals and combatants to the brink of confession or revelation. But this was different. Dante and Chase were not enemies. They were brothers in arms. And she believed, perhaps naively, that by forcing them to confront the truth in a controlled environment, they would rediscover what had once bonded them so powerfully. Instead, she watched in horror as their pain and rage erupted into physical violence. The cell that was meant to be a space for healing became an arena for destruction. The footage, which leaked within hours, showed two decorated detectives beating each other into the walls of their own shared failure. And the public, already reeling from the Geo revelation, turned immediately to Anna for answers. Brooke Lynn, meanwhile, is spiraling in her own private purgatory. Every day she wakes up to the knowledge that she held the match that set fire to everything. Her intentions may have been rooted in fear and maternal instinct, but the outcome has left her family in ruins. Chase is slipping away from her, not in a single moment of anger or betrayal, but in the slow, haunting erosion of intimacy and connection. She sees the toll it's taken on him, the sleepless nights, the short temper, the distance in his eyes when she talks about the future. And Dante. Dante can barely look at her. His silence toward her is more violent than any insult. It's the silence of a man who has lost faith in someone he once trusted with his heart, his youth. And now, unknowingly, with the existence of his son. Brooke Lynn's guilt is suffocating. She has tried to reach Gio, to explain, to comfort him. But how do you explain to your child that you denied him the chance to know his father? That you decided for him what kind of family he was allowed to have? Joe's reaction, hurt, confused, angry, has only deepened the chasm she feels within herself. And now, like Anna, she is confronted with the realization that control is an illusion. The damage has been done. Now it's about survival. Back at the PCPD, the culture is shifting in real time. Morale is plummeting. Officers are choosing sides. Some blame Chase, some blame Dante. Others blame Anna for mishandling the entire situation and are quietly questioning whether her time as commissioner should come to an end. Reports are being written. Meetings are being held behind closed doors. Every decision is under review. And still, the emotional storm rages on. Anna and Brooke Lynn, once separated by title, duty, and family roles, now find themselves drawn together by circumstance. Both are women who have made decisions with consequences they can no longer control. Both are holding the emotional wreckage of two men who are imploding from the inside out. And both are beginning to realize that the only way forward may require a level of truth, vulnerability, and sacrifice they've never dared expose before. Anna considers resigning. For a moment, the thought passes through her late at night, when she's alone in her office, staring at the cracked photo of the original team she once led with pride. But she knows walking away won't solve anything. Leadership is not about avoiding failure, it's about walking through it. And if she quits now, what happens to the men she was trying to save? What happens to the department she swore to protect? Brooklyn considers leaving town, taking Gio and disappearing, giving him a fresh start away from the chaos. But that, too, is just another version of running. And if she's learned anything from the fallout of her silence, it's that running from the truth never protects, it only delays the inevitable reckoning. There are no easy answers left. Only wreckage and the long, grueling work of rebuilding. Whether Dante and Chase can ever find their way back to each other remains uncertain. Whether Gio will forgive either of them, his mother for her silence, his father for his rage, is yet to be seen. And whether Anna and Brooklyn can hold this collapsing world together, even as it threatens to pull them under, is a question only time can answer. But one thing is certain. Nothing in Port Charles will ever be the same. The truths that have been revealed can't be taken back. The damage that has been done can't be erased. All that remains is choice, how to move forward. How to mend what's broken, and how to ensure that, out of this chaos, something stronger, something more honest, can be born. Because in a world where even the closest bonds can shatter, the only true path forward is through.